It hasn't been easy for fans of Mega Man Battle Network in recent years, at least outside of Japan. The last new game in the series was released over here in 2006, and the version we got had a substantial amount of content cut from it. Sure, we also have an officially and fully translated manga, and we also have the first two series of the anime localized in English, but Access never got an international home release, and these versions were heavily censored. But that's a discussion for later. The last Rockman EXE game released on a home Nintendo console was Rockman EXE Operation Shooting Star, which is basically just a re-release of Battle Network 1 with a few new bells and whistles. Sure, being able to play as Star Force Mega Man is cool, but in recent years, Classic Mega Man, X, and Zero have been getting some love from Capcom by getting Legacy collections, which seems kind of redundant since they already did that years before. But Battle Network, Star Force, and Legends are currently being left out in the cold. The most we've gotten is a Mega Man EXE skin for the Mii Gunners in Smash Bros. 4 and Ultimate, and Legends and Star Force didn't even get that. Recently, there has been talk about a Battle Network collection, an official one, but the wait is torturous. We haven't had a new game experience in about 15 years. Minor updates to what was, for all intents and purposes, the roughest of the Battle Network games is a nice gesture, and the Virtual Console re-releases were nostalgic, but it can hardly satiate our appetites for new adventure. That's when I decided to give Rockman EXE 4.5 a chance. I can't remember exactly how I came across it, but in early 2020, I found a reproduction cartridge of Battle Network 4.5 on eBay. Now, of course, you see these floating around from time to time. Reproductions of games that are normally stupidly expensive, or ROM hacks put onto cartridges, which is what we have here. I clicked on it and read the description, and what I saw made my eyes go wide. It advertised that the game was not only in fully coherent English, but you could also choose what gameplay style you wanted. Operation Battle, like vanilla Rockman EXE 4.5, or Classic Battle Network style. Seeing as it was close to my birthday, I decided to treat myself. And the same seller also had an English patched Operation Shooting Star, so I picked that up too. I know ROMs are free, but there's just something special about being able to play a game on its native hardware. However, it wasn't until the last couple of months that I actually started playing said reproduction cartridge, while I was working on my Battle Network Iceberg script, to be more specific. I had since tracked down the patches for the game to use on a ROM and applied them to make sure they worked, as I needed some footage for that video. Before I start giving my experience with this game, I should explain why a ROM hack was necessary, outside of the English translation. You see, Rockman EXE 4.5 may look like an expansion of Battle Network 4, having all of the same bosses, the same battle chips plus a few new ones, the same general aesthetic, but appearances are deceiving. This game is entirely centered around the Operation Battle mechanic, which was added into Battle Network 4 to take advantage of the Battle Chip Gate peripheral, sold separately. This gate let you slot in real-life battle chips to use in your game, while your Navi acted upon some pre-programmed instructions, and the most you did was tell them how to attack and evade, without directly controlling them. The real-life battle chip gimmick made the collecting aspect a bit of a chore, since those cost actual money, and in today's world, Mega Man NT Warrior merch is getting expensive. That said, you can still play it without the battle chip gate, but without cheating or hacking, 8 of the playable characters will be inaccessible to you, since you need their Navi data chip to unlock them. At least on the GBA version. They added them into the Virtual Console version, but I'll save a full breakdown of my opinion on vanilla EXE 4.5 for a later video. Bottom line, due to the changes in control style, it's just not as much fun to me and many others who love the Battle Network series. So, for those of us who are longing for a new Battle Network experience, this seemed to be a godsend. More than that, in perfect English? The reason this is such a big deal is because years ago, there was an attempt to translate this game into English, but outside the menus, you might get 1 or 2 characters who spoke coherently, but everything else was garbage text and you had no idea what was going on. But now, here we are, a new Battle Network adventure just waiting for us. Let's take a look. Now, I'm going to be talking primarily about the changes to the game rather than the gameplay features of the original version itself. Any big problems I have with this ROM hack and repro card were also present on the unmodified version of the game. The first thing you're greeted with when you begin the game is a request to put in the time and date, as well as a little personal information about yourself. If this were an online game instead of a Game Boy Advance game, I'd suspect this of data mining trying to steal my passwords and identity. You then select your Navi. As stated earlier, without cheats or hacks, you only start with a small handful. After selecting your digital companion, you're brought to the PET home screen, and your Navi will talk to you. Interacting with them by selecting different menu options will prompt them to ask you about yourself, such as favorite foods, life goals, and family members. This does help make the game a bit more personal, but from here, we jack into the internet and begin our journey as a new net operator. There isn't really a story to the game per se, but it's basically just you trying to become the top net battler. You do this by entering your Navi into a series of tournaments, and completing them will allow you to progress further into the internet. Completing the 3 main tournaments, the Silver, Gold, and Official tournaments, will grant you passes to open gates that block your path. You can get temporary passes for the Silver and Gold levels by completing daily tournaments, but those only work for 1 use, and the gate resets after you jack out. In between tournaments, after you log out and return to the home screen, you'll get emails issuing warnings about new enemy Navis to fight, giving you the closest thing we get to a story here. These are all bosses from Battle Network 4, and these side missions culminate in you getting an invite to the official tournament, where you can become an official yourself, provided you take a small detour to defeat some heel navies who call themselves Blackworks, and then go on a mission to eliminate Shademan. And it felt good to be able to do that without him turning into a swarm of bats. This is the boss fight I wish we got in Battle Network 4. Not quite as fun as the one from Battle Network 5, but definitely improvement over the previous one. Completing the official tournament will grant you a trophy for that particular Navi, and collecting a certain amount of trophies will unlock new Navis to play as well as granting you access to the Chaos area, the post-game of EXE 4.5. Rinse and repeat this process with all 13 of the main characters, those being Mega Man and the 12 Double Soul Navis of Battle Network 4, and then you can enter the Under Tournament. In this patch, completing the official tournament with all 13 of the main Navis and rolling the credits will unlock 7 more Navis for you to play as, and then defeating Base Omega in the Under Tournament will unlock Base as a playable character. These last 8 were originally Battle Chip Gate exclusives, requiring Navi data chips to activate. So far, everything I've spoken of has been the same from the unadulterated Rockman EXE 4.5. Now, let's talk about how this mod makes this experience better. Even though this mod is free, I don't regret purchasing this reproduction cartridge in the slightest. Besides the satisfaction of playing a new entry of my favorite series on legitimate hardware, the cartridge carries version 1.1 of the Battle Network gameplay patch, and this lets me experience firsthand some of the changes that have been introduced in the newer versions of the mod, and observe how it's progressed. As of version 1.1, the normal gameplay has been reinserted, as well as a few new features. Because the Add Chip feature was removed from the custom screen starting with Battle Network 4, and Mega Man doesn't have access to the Double Souls in this game, the new button introduced for this mod is the Swap button, which lets you swap between your playable Navi's different charge shots on the fly. This doesn't work for every character, however, but some examples are Gutsman being able to switch between Guts Hammer and the Guts Machine Gun, Roll being able to switch between Roll Arrow and a Barrier, Shadow Man being able to switch between Throwing Stars and Invis, and Base switching between Shooting Buster and Darkness Overload, which is the most broken charge shot in the game. It hits the back 2 enemy rows, cracks panels, and pierces guards. Welcome to Die! Also, fun fact, it seems that in this mod, they actually fixed a small animation error from the original version of the game. In unmodded EXE 4.5, whenever playable Base uses Shooting Buster, it looks like they had the wrong animation assigned to it. But with the English patch and the updated gameplay patch, it seems like they fixed this animation, bringing it in line with how Base uses Shooting Buster during his boss fight. However, there is one Navi who can use the swap feature, and it doesn't really help much with this particular style of gameplay: Windman. Rather than getting propeller bombs and flying birds as charge shots, he instead switches between the wind and fan effects, which means that a gust of wind will constantly push your enemy either towards you or away from you. Unless you have a chip folder specifically built around this playstyle, it makes him a little difficult to fight with. You don't have a very beneficial charge shot, and it's only useful in a few select circumstances. However, since you have to beat the game with at least 2 different Navis before unlocking him, there is a good chance that you'll be starting your run with him equipped with a sizable arsenal of battle chips. Speaking of collecting battle chips, the version 1.1 of this patch contains something of an unfortunate feature when visiting net dealers. When purchasing battle chips, it's a complete crapshoot of what your chip code will be. In Battle Network 4, which 4.5 is heavily modeled after, most of the standard chips have between 3 and 5 chip codes, and most Mega Class chips will only have 1, while some of them will have 1 letter and 1 star version, and most Giga Class chips usually only have 1 code. So while trying to collect your battle chips from net dealers, you may not end up getting the right code that you need. More than that, after obtaining a chip from battle, you don't see what the code is until you open your pack. I think this is due to the fact that EXE 4.5 utilized battle operation and not the custom screen, so there is no need to use chip codes. This also led to several program advances being activated with different combinations than the used in Battle Network 4. However, the default chip lineup was restored in this patch, and the more recent updates have made it to where you can see the chip codes at a dealer, as well as after battle. On that note, recent updates also added the option to sort your chips by chip code, which was absent from version 1.1, as well as adding back the regular chip option to your folder, where you can select a battle chip to show up at the start of a battle, provided your regular memory is high enough. This patch also added in other features from Battle Network 4, such as full synchro. Landing a counterattack on the enemy, or in other words, hitting them before they can initiate an attack, will cause you to enter full synchro, and your next battle chip will do double damage. A little technical mumbo-jumbo for you, what determines your full synchro state in Battle Network 4, and consequentially this patch, is a value that rises and falls based on your performance in battle. So this emotional state functions similarly to the Battle Network 4 version in that you can enter full synchro without countering an enemy if you land enough hits in a row. However, the evil emotional state is not in the game anymore. As for whether or not the worried state is, well, I touched on that in a different video, and I'll briefly go back over it later. But back to full synchro. In Battle Network 4, if you leave a battle while in full synchro, it'll carry over into your next fight, as long as it's not with a Navi. In the 1.1 patch, it does not, but it was later updated to where it does carry over in between battles. While we're on this subject, let's talk about the emotion windows. Most of these emotion windows were custom made specifically for this patch. Some of them are carryovers from other games, like Proto Man, Number Man, Mega Man, etc. But more interestingly than that, some of them seem to be updated in the most recent version of the patch. It seems that all of the full synchro emotion windows were stylized to look more like Mega Man's full synchro state, as opposed to just being tinted green like the other playable Navis in BN 5 and 6. Not gonna lie, for as much as I appreciate the updates and effort to make this as much like an authentic Battle Network experience as possible, I think I prefer some of the emotion windows from the earlier versions of the patch, Fireman's in particular. While we're talking about the custom screen and in-battle user interface, make note of these chip slots down here. As far as I know, there is so far no way to fill them in this patch. In Battle Network 4, you can fill these out by either using the Custom Plus Navi Customizer parts, or using Number Soul, thus allowing you access to more battle chips per turn. But since neither the Navi Customizer or Double Soul are in this game, they remain vacant. This isn't really a complaint, and is more of just an observation, since it is in line with playing as the different Navis from Battle Network 5 and 6. Speaking of, let's talk about returning playable Navis. It should be stated up front that none of the Navis have their signature unique chips. Proto Man doesn't have Step Sword, Search Man doesn't have a Satellite Beam, Elect Man doesn't have Dash Elect Sword, etc. They still use these abilities against you, but you can't use them. Proto Man plays slightly differently than he does in Battle Network 5 and 6. His charge shot is Long Sword instead of Wide Sword, and his shield doesn't do reflect damage. Nightman can switch his charge shot between being Kingdom Crusher, which launches his mace, and Royal Wrecking Ball, where he swings it around in circles. In Battle Network 5, Kingdom Crusher was his unique chip, while RWB was his charge shot. Aquaman plays more or less like Spoutman from Battle Network 6. His charge shot does the same thing, a bubble shot that cracks panels. Chain this together with geysers and aqua uppers. Shadow Man, again, very similar to his Battle Network 5 counterpart, just minus the split-up ability. Instead, his alternate charge shot is Invis. The same can be said for Number Man, and he only lacks his Number Trap special chip. Elect Man plays vastly different than he does in BN6. His charge shot is a Thunder, like the battle chip, Thunder, the little electrical ball that stuns enemies. I think his Battle Network 6 version is a huge improvement. I think Napalm Man plays the most differently, though. He actually has a charge shot instead of a rapid-fire Vulcan gun. His charge shot alternates between 2 fire bombs and a napalm bomb. The fire bombs act more like his Battle Network 2 version, where they leave a ring of fire on the panel instead of exploding in alternating cross flames, and the napalm bomb seeks out the nearest target instead of flying 4 panels forward. The rest of the playable characters offer a brand new experience, and I think it's best if you play this for yourself to get a handle on them. I gotta say though, my 3 favorite Navis to play as are Fireman, Junkman, and Bass. So let's talk about some glitches in this patch. Some of these I'm not sure if they were in the original game or not. There's one that happens in a few different battles, but it's most notable in the fight with Burner Man. Sometimes, depending on how the battle went, if you step on certain panels, you can take damage for seemingly no reason. I think that it happens when you destroy Burner Man's little side flamethrowers during their attack, and some of the panels that would have been hit by the fire are now a damage box. This glitch is in Battle Network 4 as well, but it's a bit hard to replicate consistently. I've noticed some similar glitches in Battle Network 2 as well. Sometimes the enemies will just up and die for no apparent reason. Either way, this instant death and damaging panel glitch is an oddity that I'd like to see further explored. The earlier versions of the patch had some bugs with some of the new chips in the game, such as Final Gun and the various mode chips, Cannon Mode, Sword Mode, and Ball Mode. Since these chips modify your buster, they have the potential to make the game freeze if you use them and then try to use your normal buster again. This has been fixed in the most recent updates, however. I'm glad for that, since these chips make me nostalgic for the early Battle Network games, with Sword Mode being similar to Buster Sword, and the Cannon Mode chip being like the Zeta Cannon Program Advance, and the Ball Mode being like the Zeta Ball PA. Final Gun is one of my new favorite battle chips as well. This patch also apparently uncovered the remnants of the Dark Chip mechanics from Battle Network 4. I already made a full video exploring this, so I'll keep this brief, but basically, playing in tournaments with certain Navis and taking too many hits in a row results in these random chips with no code appearing in your custom screen, accompanied by dimmer lights and heavy breathing. Remember I mentioned the counter from Battle Network 4 that controls your synchro level? It also controls whether or not you are worried. When you take too many hits, you become worried and dark chips show up in your custom screen. So I think that this is remnants of that system. Again, I already discussed this topic, so I'm just going to leave it at that. But I should also correct something I stated earlier. Apparently, the angry emotional state is still in the game, but only for Mega Man. The easiest way to activate it is to get hit by an attack that stuns Mega Man. The angry emotional state grants you super armor, turns you red, and doubles your next chip's attack power. Unlike Battle Network 4, however, this patch doesn't have an angry emotion window for Mega Man. Credit to Mega X Rocker for pointing this out to me. So, to give you the shortest summary of this new patch as possible, they are slowly but surely finding ways to turn the in-battle experience into a true expansion for Battle Network 4. The gameplay is coming more in line with its predecessor, and it has enough new content to make it a fresh experience for the Battle Network fans who are going through this drought of EXE content available in North America. It also lets you use DX exclusive battle chips without any sort of repercussion, so you have access to a much wider arsenal. Aesthetically speaking, this is probably the closest thing we'll ever get to being able to legitimately play as base GS. Do I have any complaints about this patch? Well, not really. Nothing exclusive to the patch. Any complaints I have are also issues with the original version of the game. Okay, well, if I had to dig deep and find something to complain about, it's that in a lot of ways, it's easier in the Battle Network 4 because many of the enemy had AI changes that were made to accommodate the Operation Battle mode. Numberman's number balls are a lot easier to destroy, Metal Man doesn't use gear change if you break his gears, Aquaman's bubble bomb only explodes on one panel instead of 9, and some of the viruses were tweaked to be easier to deal with. The first version of the Melody virus takes a much longer pause before jumping, the Thunderballs shot by the Billy viruses seem to travel a shorter distance, but most notably are the Spider viruses that give you White Web. In Battle Network 4, they would enter your area and chase you down for a long time. In 4.5, they enter your area, take one turn, and then leave to return to their starting point. So these training wheels, so to speak, to make Operation Battle easier carry over when we regain control of our Navi, and we're able to capitalize on it, making the battles much easier. There are other examples, but these are the ones that stood out to me the most. Additionally, Numberman's Dice Bomb does not explode on impact with an enemy like it does in Battle Network 4 and 5. It still gets the opportunity to detonate to deal extra damage. There are some other battle mechanics that are a little rough around the edges. When playing as Thunderman in this playstyle, his charge shot, which strikes with 3 thunderbolts, causes him to stop moving, pausing for roughly half a second, and then beginning the attack, and you're unable to move until all 3 bolts finish striking. This is actually what led to me finding the Dark Chip select option, because this pause led to me getting hit several times in a row. Searchman doesn't play exactly like he does in Battle Network 5. The biggest notable difference I could find is that his scope gun doesn't fire quite as fast as it does in Team Proto Man, and there's a slightly longer delay before you actually start firing. I'm not sure if these can be fixed or not, and it doesn't really ruin the experience, but it simply means that you have to re-strategize with what you have. But Thunderman's abilities do make it feel a bit clunkier than it does in Operation Battle mode. Oh, and there's no little chime to let you know when the custom gauge is full and the Navi logo doesn't spin like in the other games. But aside from those, I have almost no complaints with how the battles play out in this game. It's a very faithful recreation of Battle Network 4's combat system. I will say that Mega Man himself seems to be getting the short end of the stick here, with him not having his Navi customizer or Double Soul. The other Navis get cool charge abilities and weapons, while Mega Man is just stuck using his Buster. It's kind of like playing as Battle Network 1 Mega Man in Battle Network 4. The grind to beat the game and max out every Navi is a bit of a slog, even while abusing the in-game clock to speed up events, but it's infinitely more enjoyable being in classic Battle Network style as opposed to Operation Battle. Truth be told, I'm not super looking forward to playing normal EXE 4.5 after coming off of this. This is less related to the battle patch and more so to the English translation project, which has been a work in progress for years, but just look at the amount of effort that has gone into this. Not only do we have a fully translated game, when the best we got years ago was a broken jumble of barely understandable English, but they also put forth the effort to make changes to simulate an actual localization of the game, as though it was an official release, down to having distinct title screens for the North American and European versions, and keeping the shortened names for Battle Network 4 and 5. While not correct per se, since it's supposed to be Man and Searchman is supposed to have an A in his name, it feels accurate because these misspellings were in the actual series itself. And they also replaced some of the Japanese exclusive holidays, like Setsubun and Children's Day, with things like Halloween and April Fool's Day. These don't really affect the gameplay, but your Navi will give you a message based on what day it is, and it's a very nice touch. I just find it very touching and wholesome. The amount of love and effort that went into these mods to basically give a gift to the Battle Network community outside of Japan. With certain fan projects getting shut down or abandoned, this lets us get as close to a new Battle Network game that we are likely going to get anytime soon, as well as a pathway to let us play a less than traditional experience accompanied by so many quality of life improvements, as well as box art and instruction manual and full accessibility without needing the battle chip gate, even though it is chip gate compatible. I'll link the patches below so you can experience this for yourself. If you enjoyed Battle Network 4, at least the gameplay aspect of it, and wanted to experience something of an expansion pack, then give this a whirl. It's definitely worth the time, and I'll be watching the potential of this, as well as other Battle Network ROM hacks in the near future.